In today's video, we'll be going over Is It Worth the Grind series, where we're going to be going over the German tech tree, but the updated edition. We did a previous edition of this, but when we did that one, the Prinz Adalbert line was not added. Now we have the Prinz Adalbert line added. We're going to be going over this one along with the others on if they're worth grinding out or not. So let's get started. This is the German tech trees you can see here. We have the Schlieffen battleship line. We have the Hanover lines you can see here, the Preussen. We have the Hindenburg with the supership Clausewitz. We have the Adalbert line, the Elbing line, CVD2, U-25, and the Richthofen lines. So let's start off on the left side about the Schlieffen. Is the Schlieffen line going or grinding out nowadays? And the simple answer is going to be no. And the reason why we say that is because of a little thing called the Pan-American battleships. If you haven't seen the other How It's Worth series, the Pan-American battleship line is essentially the best secondary line in the game. You can get in the Pan-American tree, as you can see here, and it has the Ipiranga, Los Andes, and the Libertad. Those ships in particular are very strong against the Schlieffen line, and it makes it where in a 1v1 scenario or any kind of situation, the Libertad line is always going to come out on top over the Schlieffen. So if you're looking for a secondary line to go down, the Schlieffen line is no longer the one to go down. It's now the Libertad line. The Libertad line's tankier, it has better DPM, it has maneuverability. The only real difference between the two that you can kind of argue for the Schlieffen line is the fact that the Schlieffen line has torpedoes as well as hydroacoustics for 5.5 kilometers against enemy ships. But what are your thoughts on the Schlieffen line, SAT?
I do agree with your assessment. Torps and Hydro is really the only reason to take Schlieffen over Libertad. But the problem is, it's just not good enough. Libertad has so many other advantages going for her that I can't reasonably see Schlieffen having an advantage in all but very specific scenarios. And those specific scenarios are hard to come by. If you want a secondary battleship, just go with Libertad.
Yep. All right, so moving on from the Schlieffen line, let's go over the Preussen line. So the Preussen line is the one that is next to the Schlieffen lines you can see here. You would grind it down here. Now, would we recommend this line? It is a forgiving line, but at the same time, no. There's a lot of battleship lines that are easier to play and more consistent on gun performance. Like the FDG is considered one of the worst tier 9 ships in the game. So as you're going down the tree, the Bismarck isn't as good as it used to be. And you may want to build this line for secondaries. Don't really want to do that until the Hanovers or the only one you really want to. The rest of the line is supposed to be more of like in the middle where you can build partially secondaries, partially guns, or you just build all the way the guns, and the Hanovers is the one where you build the secondaries. So kind of that mix match kind of makes it a little bit difficult to recommend as well. But what are your thoughts on SAT?
Yeah, just playing the German battleship, the Preussen line, just kind of makes it feel like you're not good at anything. Like, you have a couple other lines like Montana that are like jack of all trades, master of none, but they are pretty strong overall because they have like almost no good, like they're still like really good overall. German battleships, on the other hand, feel like they fall in the opposite category. They feel mediocre at everything, with Hydro really the only standout part. But it's not really worth playing the line just for that Hydro. And yeah, it's forgiving, but once you get better at the game, like forgiving is not good enough. You want a ship that can perform consistently in against like a wide variety of targets, and unfortunately Preussen is just not that. The line in general.
So moving on from the battleships, let's move on to the cruisers. So for the cruiser lines, we have the Hindenburg line with the supership Clausewitz, and we have the Adalbert line, as you can see here. So let's go over the Hindenburg line and the Clausewitz. So the Hindenburg line, I would say it's a pretty good starter line in the game. It's pretty good for teaching the basics of like hiding cruiser. On the line itself, you do also get 6-kilometer hydro, you get a heel, you get a spotter or a fighter. The Hindenburg line itself starts getting good around as it's going down. It does pretty well, but the ruin's a pretty rough spot. And the reason why I say that is because how the ship is designed, you have one turret at the front and two at the rear. And to be able to use that front turret is really, really bad angles. So as you're cutting away, you have to show a lot of your side, which really baits a lot of players to show their side a lot to the enemy, and then they get dev struck. You have to learn to mainly use your rear guns and only use the front gun when you're either moving in bow in, or at an angle, or where you're at a safe enough distance to safely show enough of your side to shoot with that front gun. Because if you try doing it where you're not really moving or not really dodging at all, and you're just sitting there, you're gonna get dev struck pretty easily. While the Nuremberg, York, and Hipper have 2 turrets at the front, 2 at the rear, that make it a lot easier to be able to maneuver. Same with the Hindenburg and the Clausewitz. So that's why overall I think it's a good line. It teaches you a balance between good HE and good AP, as well as if you do have to do a drive-by, they also have 6-kilometer torpedoes as well, which can definitely do a lot of damage as well. But what are your thoughts on the Hindenburg line SAT?
Since you mentioned teaching, I do recommend the Hindenburg line since it's a really good line for newer players. At the higher tiers, the armor scheme is more of a turtleback, so it gives more protection if you do end up showing broadside. The guns in general are pretty solid as well, and there's no big vices to any of the ships. So with a simple kiting playstyle, they're really good for newer players to kind of learn the kiting cruiser playstyle. Pretty versatile as well. You don't need a high-level captain to get the most out of the ship. So I agree, pretty recommended for me.
So moving on from the Hindenburg line, let's go and talk about the Adalbert line. So for the Adalbert line, you have the Just line here going all the way down to the Adalbert. The line starts getting good starting at the tier 8, 9, and 10. That's where the secondaries start getting really good. Now, you did hear me right. This is a secondary cruiser line. It's the first secondary tech tree cruiser line in the game, and these secondaries go out as far as the battleships for their tier. And they also are special as well. They also get manual secondaries. So you're able to use the secondaries manually, or you can let them fire automatically. And when you use them manually, it increases the range of them. So you're able to shoot over islands that regular secondaries don't really fire over, which allows you to do more damage or even blind fire into smokes as well. So say that you're pushing a smoke and you have your 6-kilometer hydro up and you're spotting something with your secondaries, or sorry, with their hydro. You can blind shoot it, or you can shoot it with your secondaries while it's doing that, or say someone's in smoke and you're not able to spot them. You could also blind shoot them with those secondaries without increasing your detectability by that ship in that smoke, because if you used your main guns, it would make it where you would be spotted by your smoke fire bloom. So as you can see here, the smoke fire bloom is right here. It shows 13 kilometers. But with the secondaries, it wouldn't do that at all. So there's a lot of utility with this ship and the way you can use those manual secondaries. So I would recommend this line only though after you played a few other lines, or maybe like 1 or 2, because it's gonna require a little bit more game knowledge to be able to fully utilize them. And the guns themselves are also really good. Like these guns are almost as good as Stalingrad's, or about the same. They are accurate for the tier, and they do pack a punch. With 350s, you're able to dev strike other cruisers. It is really strong overall. Great AP and great HE for them. But what are your thoughts on this line, SAT?
The Adalbert line is the line that Schlieffen wished it was. It's another secondary focused line, but importantly, it does not directly compete with the Libertad. Instead, she actually is a very unique secondary-based cruiser. You'll only find this playstyle in a few premium cruisers like Napoli, but Adalbert in her niche is very strong. Like, she's very similar to Schlieffen, but as he said, that manual secondaries gives her a big advantage in many situations. You don't feel like you're losing that much either. She's still fairly tanky, the secondaries will wreak havoc, and the main guns, of course, will still punish enemy ships. So, if you want a secondary ship from the German tech tree, just get Adalbert. It's much better than Schlieffen.
So moving on from the Adalbert, let's talk about the Elbing line. So going from the Elbing line, you can go here, you cut to the right, you go here, and you go down to the Elbing line here, starting at the Z31 and going down. The line starts getting good at the tier 8, 9, and 10, but would we recommend the Elbing line? I'm gonna say no. The Elbing line has very strong AP, which has improved ricochet angles and what's the word for it? A longer fuse time, or improved pen. What's the word for it, SAT?
improve like ricochet angle.
No. The longer fuse time. So it does higher pen.
There isn't a term for longer fuse time.
Oh, okay.
It has kind of like a cruiser AP fuse time.
Okay, so and with this, it's able to do a lot of damage to battleships, cruisers. It can even Citadel cruisers as well. But it has a downside though. It has very weak HE shells. And this makes it where the line does a very poor job at countering other destroyers. So it's more seen as like a farmer line. So what I recommend the Elbing, it's like 50-50. If you're able to get the legendary mod, you want to if you're able to get the legendary mod, which makes it more capable of defending itself, sure. But overall, the ship isn't very good for beginners. It's more like if you have a couple of destroyer lines under the belt and you want a more unique play style, then I think the Elbing would be definitely a lot of fun to get. But for a beginner, no, I would not recommend the Elbing line. But what are your thoughts, SAT?
On the other hand, I do recommend the Elbing line, but also not for beginners. This is a more gunboat gameplay kind of destroyer, so something like Kleber or the Russian destroyers. Elbing is fun in this regard because her AP is the best of any destroyer in the game. You'll be able to land shots from long range and Citadel cruisers that don't respect your AP shells. Not the best against destroyers, but they can hold their own in a fight, especially because they have the best accuracy in the game. It's a little bit harder to play with compared to the other gunboat lines, but you'll have a lot of fun if you can utilize their niche to their full advantage. I would still play other gunboat destroyers first because they're a bit easier, but if you want a different kind of playstyle and you want to rack up the Citadel ribbons, then Elbing is a solid choice.
All right, so moving on from there, let's talk about the ZVV2 line. So the ZVV2 line is right next to the Elbing line, as you can see here. So the ZVV2 line is similar to the Elbing line in some ways, but it's different as well. So I'm gonna explain that. So the ZVV2 line is more of a jack of all trade German line, but it doesn't do it as well as say like the British daring line. It has a 6-kilometer hydro with an engine boost, a smoke, and a damage control part, you see here. And the torpedoes go out to 10.5 kilometers. The shells on the ZV2 are okay. It's not the best. They do have nice pen at 32 millimeters, but overall, the line itself just is not very strong. It does have a nice gimmick of that 6-kilometer hydro, which helps push destroyers out of caps, but you really don't get much else. You sacrifice a lot for that gimmick, and it isn't paid off enough. So we would recommend the British daring line more, but I'll let SAT Square explain a little bit more.
So I feel the Z52 line suffers pretty similar to the Preussen line. It's that it's kind of a jack of all trades, but ends up falling on the mediocre end. Like, yes, she has some notable advantages like hydro, a long-range hydro compared to other destroyers, and her HE also has improved penetration, but it's just not enough to justify the other deficits that are in the line. Your HE DPM is not great, you get inferior smoke, your surface detection is actually higher than many other stealthy destroyers. And your AP is nice, but only works when the enemy is broadside, which is a bit harder to do. So I feel like it has potential, and it's almost there, but the way that her stats line up just does not give her a good combat capabilities overall. As Bo said, Daring is a better line for beginners. She has a very similar playstyle in fighting other destroyers, but she just does it better.
Yep, and this is the Darien line here in the UK trees you guys can see here. This is the Darien line right here for you guys to take reference of. So you guys know.
If you're a new destroyer player and you want to learn how destroyers play Daring.
All right, so moving on, let's talk about the next line, which is to be the U-25 line. So the U-25 line is the German submarine tech tree line. Would we recommend the U-2501 line? If you want to play submarines, sure. The tier 10 has only forward-facing torpedoes, while the lower tiers have both front and rear. So the tier 10 one is seen as inferior to the tier 8 and 6, where they're seen as better. The Vallejo line overall is seen as better as well because it has better hydrophones with the submarine players, with the hydrophones being better. So if you want to play submarines, sure, the U-25 is good. It does a really good job at hunting submarines as well with the 9-kilometer submarine surveillance. The torpedoes do have a nice reload as well, and you do have reserve battery as well. But overall, and it's also very speedy underwater and on the surface at 27 knots for both. So if you want to get the U-25 and you're a submarine player, sure. But I would normally recommend the Baleo line over the U-25. But what are your thoughts, SAT?
I feel like 2501 line would be better as like a beginner sub line. Just kind of something to get your hands wet on how the class works. Pretty good maneuverability. The 9-kilometer hydrophone or sub-surveillance is pretty solid when fighting other destroyers. And the homing torps reach out to a surprisingly long range, so you can sit relatively safely if you're worried about 50 depth charges being dropped on your head.
Yeah, the hydrophone is 8 kilometers and the submarine surveillance is 9 kilometers. By the way, I was just correcting that.
Yeah. As I said, the homing torpedoes are surprisingly long range, so you can play it safely if needed too. So, like the 2501 may not be the best submarine, but by then you probably have a good idea of sub combat, so you can continue on by playing other sub lines, or if you don't like the subs, well, you just stop there.
All right, so the final line to talk about today is going to be the Richthofen line. So as you can see here, you start at the start, go down to the V170, and you go down to the Tier 6, Tier 8, Tier 4, Tier 6, Tier 8, and Tier 10 of the Richthofen line. Now, the Richthofen line did just get something added to the... here it is, sorry. They did just get something recently added to their arsenal, which is the... firefighter assistance. So this is, you're able to place this 20 kilometers. So when you click the M key, you get a little layout on the map, and it shows who on your team is on fire, and you're able to place this support onto your allies, which puts out fires for 20 seconds, which is really nice. It allows you to help your teammates and be a little bit more supportive role. So if you like doing more supportive role things in this game, then this would definitely be really nice. You do have to be aware though that there are a lot of the tools of the Richthofen are AP. So the attack rockets on this are AP. So you have to hit more the sides of cruisers and battleships, as well as the dive bombers are also AP as well. So you have to try to hit for citadels with those bombs to do more damage. The torpedoes are very quick on this, which are good at hitting destroyers, cruisers, or anything fast or slow. But overall, what are your thoughts on the Richthofen line, SAT?
So yes, it did get a recent buff with the firefighting support consumable, but the main reason you still take the line is because of her amazing, I bet RNG kind of AP bombs. Those AP bombs are very devastating against cruisers and battleships, and you even get a heal so you can walk through relatively heavy AA without losing too many planes. Big salvos from Richthofen can land 3 citadels, which is like somewhere over 20k damage. It is ridiculous, but at the same time, there is a lot of RNG in how the bombs land. You can get 3 RNGs, 3 citadels, or you can get like 3 overpens. I've seen it happen. But besides that, you also get AP rockets, which is very good against broadside targets, especially cruisers. So the torpedoes are okay, they're fast, but they don't deal much damage, and they're surprisingly effective against destroyers. I feel that the Richthofen is a very high skill floor, very high skill ceiling kind of ship. Like very good once you master AP. But until then, there's a lot of you'll have a lot of moments where you feel like the AP should have done a lot more damage, or you just got screwed over by RNG.
The line also has the fastest tech tree planes in the game. They are extremely fast.
Yep, very good for spotting, and very good for just deploying fighters to about anywhere you need on the map. As a side note, Richthofen's the line's also pretty good at defending against destroyer rushes. It's fairly well armored, and the secondaries have improved accuracy, so destroyers have to be very careful when getting close.
Yep, or they'll get gunned down by those secondaries, which are quite painful, and they do go out quite a far distance as well. So you have to be careful of that. And you can also control them manually as well. So that is something you can do as well with them. That was a recent addition that they did, is they made it where aircraft carriers, if they have secondaries, they can control them manually. So they are able to defend themselves.
Yep, it's a pretty solid line, although it's a lot of RNG. So just be warned if your bombs don't go where they're supposed to.
Yep, so that is going to be it for today's video. If you guys have any questions or concerns on these lines, let us know in the comments down below. This is Overlord Bo, an SAT score, and we will talk to y'all later.